over time, as you use AI, that is a risk of you stopping to question things more and more, atrophying. And that's, I think, the term that you've now started hearing. And that's what was referred to by cognitive surrender. You're basically outsourcing your ability to think and critically approach things to AI. So do you have an immediate take on it?
Oh yeah, I'm screwed. I'm a
All right, roll tape. You've heard. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm like a 2-year-old with an iPad, basically. I'm done for.
Use AI intentionally and use it to challenge you and to exercise and make yourself better rather than outsourcing things to it wholesale.
If you can compare it to something simple, for example, GPS, in a way it's similar because it's like these modern day GPSs, they will actually scan what's going on in real time and tell you how to avoid traffic. And like now we have AI scanning the internet and avoiding traffic for you and creating less friction to get to your endpoint. My name is Lior from Exploring ChatGPT.
I'm Daniel of Why Try AI.
We're going to be going into cognitive surrender. Daniel's idea for the topic for today, and I'm definitely more than happy to speak about it. It's in terms of that phrase, cognitive surrender, it is somewhat of a new phrase, but Daniel did mention to me that he was speaking about the topic before that idea actually came to fruition in terms of saying cognitive surrender. I'll just let Daniel take the lead here because he's been thinking about this for a while.
It's just early this year. It's like a Wharton study, and they basically coined like 3 different ways of thinking about thinking. The classic ones that we all know is the whole thinking fast and slow, right? The tier 1 thinking is like the short, like heuristic, oh, I know the answer. It's like a quick, and then a deeper, more complex thinking. And they coined the term artificial thinking in that paper, saying this is where you basically more or less outsource the heavy lifting to AI and you don't do due diligence or rather you basically don't have any reasons to question what AI comes back with. And over time, as you use AI, that is a risk of you stopping to question things more and more, atrophying. And that's, I think, the term that you've now started hearing. And that's what was referred to by cognitive surrender, where you're like, hey, it's probably right. The first times I checked the sources that ChatGPT gave me, now I'm reasonably sure it's okay, so I don't need to check sources anymore. And suddenly you're basically outsourcing your ability to think and critically approach things to AI. So that's like the gist of what cognitive surrender means in this context. And I think I was curious to chat to you about it because I know that you and I have slightly different approaches to posting. I know you do a lot of thinking prior to posting, but you are happy to have AI take the wheel to some extent for the write-up, and then you go and do it. While me, coming from a writing background, I still hang on to that writing as being my thing. And there are 2 sides of working with AI, and maybe some of them are more prone to cognitive surrender. I don't know. So do you have an immediate take on it?
Oh yeah, I'm screwed. I'm a
All right, roll tape. You've heard. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm like a 2-year-old with an iPad, basically. I'm done for. But yeah, I guess in all seriousness, who knows what this is like the long lasting effects is going to be. I think it's just the power of it is almost like it's very attractive, right? And
it's a magic answer machine.
Yeah, like when you can almost build anything, do anything, and even outsource your ideas. I wonder where this is all going to go. It's almost, here's the first tangent for the day. A lot of people feel like time is moving fast. And sometimes I'll see these YouTube clips of people like complaining about where did the day go? And I'm like, yeah, you were watching TikToks for 3 hours. And those 3 hours, like you were watching 30-second videos and then the time is gone. And I feel that sometimes myself, if I'm on YouTube, they call it brain rot for a reason. Whereas if I'm sitting there and I have my new baby in my hands, I'm just looking in his eyes, like 5 minutes feels like an hour, right? So I think we'll see what this leads to down the line, because now it's becoming ingrained in everything. But yeah, back to the topic in terms of, I've always been very transparent about how I work here on Substack. And yeah, I'm definitely doing some cognitive surrender myself. So not afraid to say it, not afraid to admit it.
I think it's actually interesting you touched upon like things like doom scrolling or just getting like just these addictive behaviors that we have. I think the insidious things with cognitive surrender is that when you're on YouTube or you're scrolling TikTok or you're scrolling Facebook feed for just whatever funny videos or like just to relax, you kind of know it's a guilty pleasure, but we all know that you're not thinking much to yourself, oh, I'm being productive. And it's just something you do before bed instead of, I don't know, maybe reading a book. And you kind of know that it's a guilty pleasure. The problem with cognitive surrender is that it could be a component of an otherwise productive session with AI. You could be just like, but because you're not questioning it, you're like, hey, yeah, I just come up back with this. And then you start doing it more and more. It's a little bit more subtle, right? It's like you feel like you've done something productive. Maybe you've built something, like you said, maybe you have an outcome, and maybe the outcome is actually pretty good, but your ownership of it is diluted because you haven't had the chance, or maybe didn't have the will, or you didn't even realize that you are outsourcing the critical thinking in that process, which I think is like, that's a new bit of a new paradigm as
Right.
I see it, because it's harder to pinpoint and say, I wasn't really exercising my brain, because it feels like you are in
Yeah.
some of these sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will just mention, and I want you to get into like how you were talking about this before actually people were talking about cognitive surrender. In one of my articles, uh, I had this idea of AI training humans, and it was like it was basically just comparing the two things where everyone always talks about how you can train AI, how these models are being trained by humans, and therefore their data set is based on training on the internet, training on human input, even if you're using like Claude or ChatGPT. And sometimes you'll ask it something and it'll give you two answers and it'll ask you which one you prefer. So it's training, it's like you're training it for what you like better. Because at the end of the day, it wants to please you, it wants to make you feel good. And but I think that in many ways, as we move forward into the future, AI is training us, and
Mhm.
probably that the difference between us training AI versus AI training us, it seems like at this point it's pushing towards the other side of we are being trained by AI more so than the other way around
Yeah.
in terms of how it's shaping our brains
Yeah.
and changing who we are as humans.
Yeah. I just, as you were speaking, I immediately thought of this old cartoon. I don't remember where I saw it and the exact content. There was something about two cats talking to each other, and one goes like, "Yeah, I trained my human to clean up my litter, and after I'm done pooping or whatever." It's just like a change of perspective. So that's the image I had in my head as you were saying it. But it's probably, like you said, it probably goes both ways, because the modem interaction with chatbots is also pretty new, right? The whole idea of, and that's actually what I covered in one of the articles that I mentioned, that I was aware of cognitive surrender already then. I just didn't use the term. And throughout my writing about AI, I have always said use AI intentionally and use it to challenge you and to exercise your and make yourself better, rather than outsourcing things to it wholesale. And in the post called "Are We Even Ready for AI Search?" I talked about, at the time it was new that ChatGPT and others would go out and research the web and come back with answers. And I was saying it's great because it's convenient, because instead of looking through the 10 blue links on Google and clicking and looking at somebody's blog and just like getting a lot of noisy results, you suddenly get this condensed answer. But the problem with that is, of course, that the Google's 10 blue links, they train you to at least go and exercise your own judgment and click through and be like, oh, yeah, this one has a lot of weird ads. It looks dodgy. I'm not going to trust this. I'm going to go here. These two sources, they seem to agree with each other and they're both scientific journals. Okay, you exercise. And when AI comes back with an answer, you trust it to have synthesized it. And maybe the first few times, let's be honest, not for many people, not even, but the first few times you might click on the sources and see. But if we're honest with ourselves, over time, you'd be like, hey, yeah, it's probably right. I can see that it consulted 100 sources and this answer is the summary. It's probably okay, right? So that was the danger I flagged back in 2024, I think, when I first wrote about it. And it looks like right now we're starting to see the effects of it as well.
Yeah,
That people are increasingly using this level 3 thinking, where you just do artificial thinking for you, right?
yeah, yeah. Have you ever seen the movie
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
classic as well.
yeah. So for those of you that haven't, it's this guy gets put in this pod. That was like a government program where they said they're I don't remember. They told him, "Okay, we're testing this thing. We're gonna put you to sleep for a couple days or whatever it was." And the next thing, war breaks out, and he wakes up 500 years later, or however much
Or
longer
something.
it was, and everybody is stupid.
Yeah.
Basically,
And the
everybody.
punchline is that the guy is actually a pretty average Joe at the time he gets frozen. He's not a genius. He's like a regular dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he wakes up, and he's the smartest person in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that movie is like they never show, as far as I remember, as far as I recall, they never show the process of how that degradation happened. It's a hilarious movie. I recommend it. It's called Idiocracy.
Yeah.
And like I think now in this AI world, I'm like, maybe that's how it happens. Like slowly, people just keep giving up we've become so dependent on technology. And
Yeah.
this technology is different from anything else before. But
Mhm.
we always say that with every new technology. But if you can compare it to something simple, for example, GPS, right? Like at this point, you don't see anybody using a map when they go on a road trip, right? But even for simple things, like even in your own neighborhood, if you know you could turn on GPS and maybe save 2 minutes, you're going to do it, right? In a way, it's similar because it's like these modern day GPSs, they will actually scan what's going on in real time and tell you how to avoid traffic.
Yeah, like road updates, roadworks, any
Yeah,
accidents, anything like that. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
And like now we have AI scanning the internet and avoiding traffic for you and creating less friction to get to your endpoint. So I
Mm.
think it's like a good comparison of this technology that we're becoming dependent on. How is this shaping us as humans?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's funny because just a few days ago, I remember commenting on somebody else's post, and I wrote that, yeah, this is Daniel's agent commenting, and Daniel doesn't need to worry about his pretty little head around, about this. He can just keep scrolling, and I'm going to take over from here. I was did it a tongue in cheek thing, but the reality is, I think over time, this isn't a too far fetched scenario, right? But I think the fact that we have increasing attention on it, and even whether you want to call it backlash or pushback against AI to it, I think those are self-made potentially balancing factors, and we will realize that there is a healthy way to interact with AI versus an unhealthy way to interact with AI. And I've always encouraged an intentional way. I think I remember at some point, that was also one of the posts I wrote. I was invited to do like an online talk for a bunch of graduates about job hunting with AI and how you could use it. It was 2024, I think, as well. And my premise from the beginning was that, listen, guys, yes, you can go to a software tool that will spam companies with 200 versions of your CD at scale and click a button and just see. But basically, don't do that. Not because it's not possible, but because you're doing yourself a disservice. Because for one, you're not actually finding the things that make you happy at work, or you're not doing any introspection. And two, at the end of the day, you will be the one, the person that people hire, and you will still need to interact with others. And so basically, if you're going to use it for job hunt, use it to make yourself better. Use it to try to spot weak points in your own thinking about work, to ask you an interviewer about what are your passions, what are the good matches out there. Do like interview practice with AI. Put AI into the role of a skeptical interviewer and do like a voice chat and go through all these hard questions and practice and get better, right? Seen in that way, I feel like AI can be a very good sandbox. And I know personally that's how I like using AI. I'm very like I'm a social person by nature. I don't do well by just sitting like a genius in a corner in some basement somewhere and thinking up brilliant ideas in a barrel and then coming out and telling the world. I need a sounding board. Like I am the type who will take a colleague and will go into a room and be like, hey, let's discuss this. I think this. Oh, you think that? Yeah, I'm not sure I'm aligned. Okay, that argument. Okay, now you changed my mind. I like that kind of interaction. That's how I grow the most. And the thing is, you can actually get that out of AI to some extent. You can ask it to challenge you. You can ask it to come with a first draft, and then you push it back and see things evolve. That I think that kind of interaction and that dynamic prevents some degree of cognitive surrender than just, hey, draft this email from me and send this CD to 100 companies on a whim. So perhaps not all is lost.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I appreciate everybody in the chat as well. And I see one here that actually was going to just touch on that point to carry on what you were saying there. JC said the ultimate irony is that job hunters and HR hiring managers both
Exactly.
using AI. And
Exactly.
like when you said job hunting, I'm like, job hunting until there's no jobs. But I don't know if it's too much of a tangent, but actually, I think it's kind of scary when you see like CEOs, whether it's Dario or Sam Altman or whoever it is, and they're talking about how there's going to be no coding jobs. There's
Mhm.
software engineers are done for and all of this
Mhm.
stuff. And I think that the danger in that is like you're basically telling people like, don't go study this because we won't need you. And then
Mhm.
what happens if we do need them? And now there's not,
Mhm.
and now we just reduce that funnel
Yeah.
towards that profession because you told us we don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that this whole idea of AI replacing the job market is just wrong and dangerous.
Call me an optimist, but like I'm always been like, I think we've gone through paradigm shifts before. And granted, AI is a pretty strong
Yeah.
one, considering I feel we, the society, are pretty good at figuring out and adapting to it. And when I say that, I say it on a global level. Because it's not to be dismissive of the fact that a specific job might disappear. And if you are not going to reorient yourself, so it is there are going to be harms, but I think I'm not like we're going to get to an apocalypse where there is nothing for anybody. I think we're going to evolve what it means to be a software engineer. Maybe software engineer is no longer a person who is an excellent coder and can spot mistakes and errors and bugs and refactor code quickly, but someone who has architectural understanding and knows how to bridge the gap between the code and what the actual customers are and has a more holistic perspective, which AI doesn't have by virtue of not really having a world model to be grounded in. And maybe those are the skills we will want to train more so than just hardcore coding skills. It's just a different level of abstraction. And that's just to anchor to your example. But I think the same can be said about many areas. Some specific, very heavily defined tasks and jobs might be outsourced. But as a whole, I think we will over time adjust as a society to the new reality of it. I'm less of a doomer when it comes to, okay, we're just going to sit and stare at the sky and do nothing as our brains slowly melt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
it's
I think
famous
that,
last words. I
yeah.
don't know.
I think a couple things on that to compare it back to that Idiocracy movie. I don't remember seeing anybody working in that movie. When the guy wakes up in the pod, he gets into this guy's apartment. The guy's sitting on a chair comforter that's also a toilet and also
And watching
watching.
the Are My Balls video show,
Yeah.
where all everything that happens is just pure lowbrow slapstick of the guy just getting hit in the nuts, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's actually one of the dangers of this. If it's like, if this is true, then it's the degradation of critical thinking, not just critical thinking in the way that we think about it, but just like actual thinking. That's that it's going to accelerate that. But I think just to give an example on this, I think one of the best examples in history of where a specific job did disappear, but work didn't. So it just
Mhm.
people found better work and better jobs, and technology kept advancing in that direction. I think the best example is farming. At a certain point in history, I don't know if it was 100 years ago, probably 100 years ago, maybe a little bit more, like 90% of people used to be farmers. And then we invented a machine. We invented machines that were able to do the job of 100 or 1,000 farmers. And now all of a sudden, people weren't farmers anymore. Does that mean that nobody's working now? No. I know it's a simple example because I'm comparing the most amazing new advanced technology, which is artificial intelligence, to like farming equipment. Like,
I think it's a fair comparison because
yeah,
agriculture is at the core of society even to this day. It's just so I don't think it's an unfair comparison at all.
yeah. I think in terms of the job market itself, let's say this actually happens and 90% of the job market gets replaced by AI. Like, does that actually mean that people aren't going to have jobs anymore?
And
I don't think that's a road we want to go down.
no, and to me, the answer is no. I don't think so. I think they will have jobs that will have to do with something irreplaceable, something that humans like relational, something to do, or maybe more elevated. Again, if you want to stick to a single profession, when we switched from abacus to I don't know calculator and then to spreadsheets, doesn't mean like accountants were no longer like an accountant didn't need to sit and maybe write long division anymore, but they could do more with like more powerful tools, and the nature of the work and the deliverables shifted. And I think that's true probably for many places in AI. Again, specific niches and like very narrowly defined tasks and jobs can become outsourced, but professions as a whole, and I'm not too worried yet, but let's see
Yeah.
what tomorrow brings.
Yeah.
And when OpenAI launches the ultimate job bot that just takes over all the jobs by itself, and
Yeah.
uh,
I think like on this point of technology changing the world, I think it comes with two major factors, and that is convenience and confidence. So everybody knows confidence in terms of AI, and like it goes back to what you said about checking references. When the answer looks so confident, you're more willing to just go with it, not check references. And I see that all the time. I think especially I've mentioned this before where I've said, for example, like some of the older people that I know in my life that use mostly ChatGPT, they take its answer as like the Bible.
yeah.
Like I looked it up on ChatGPT. Just ChatGPT it. You're not Googling it anymore. ChatGPT it, and then you know. And it's like that basically that means like you can know anything, but you actually don't know anything.
But
And then like on the convenience side, I think that where convenience comes in is if something is convenient, now you don't think twice about it because it's like the sheer speed of it and the convenience of being able to just I guess like this goes into just using it as a search engine, but also I think it works on a deeper level as well. Why wouldn't you like again like back to CEOs? Dario Modi said I think by 2027 all code will be written by AI. Why would anybody learn to code anymore because now it's become so convenient to vibe code, for
Mm.
example.
A hot take could be, why does anybody need to learn to code if we can at some point believe that we're not there yet, but let's imagine AI gets to a place where it can reliably code things without failure. Do you want to learn to code, or do you want to learn to be the guy who knows, like, how do you channel that code in the right direction and toward the right purposes and have the taste and the human understanding of what it needs to code? And that could be, I don't know, it sounds like a hot take now, but this is not far from where we've gone with other tools, right? You don't need to do calculations in your head. You have a spreadsheet that can do the sums of like tens of thousands of rows for you, but that doesn't mean you cannot work within the space of like accounting or whatever and do something more meaningful with, instead of spending time on the actual nitty-gritty calculations. And I think you mentioned about like people just deferring to ChatGPT for answers, and like even that precedes AI, right? Like my mom would like sometimes come with a random story from somewhere, like, "Did you know that in country X they do this crazy thing?" I'm like, "What's the source for that?" "Oh, Facebook." I'm like, "Mom, Facebook is not a source. Facebook is a distribution channel for a potential news article or a person, but like it's not a source. Like you have to go to who wrote this, what was their motivation, like." So people can be uncritical. We don't need ChatGPT to not be critical, but it is true though that creating that aura of authority with chatbots and saying the chatbot has parsed all of these sources and it comes back to me, that kind of creates that extra layer of cognitive surrender, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me personally, I guess back into like use case and the reason, and when you brought this up in the beginning of the stream, like the way that I work here on Substack. And honestly, like I did say it jokingly, but it's also very true because I post every day, like it actually feels much better when it comes a little bit more natural. And I think this also comes down to what I might see on social media. I don't take everything as truth, but a lot of my ideas will come from watching an interview with Elon Musk or Dario or Sam Altman, and then I can expand on those ideas. But like when you post every day, you're not going to come up with ideas every day. So that means that I'm also sometimes outsourcing my ideas to AI. Now, is that dangerous? Probably, maybe. But also, I think that comes down to what I said earlier about AI. I'm training AI. AI is training me in both ways. But when I'm outsourcing ideas, it's giving me ideas that it thinks would be of interest to me, and then I still have to filter those. Right?
Yeah,
I'm not just
that's
gonna
what I was gonna say. That's probably
choose.
that's where you step in as a human and have like critical judgment of like
Yeah,
filtering through the.
yeah. Like I want to see like all the recent AI news. I want to see everything that's happening right now, and then I'm gonna choose from all of it. It would be almost the same thing as searching the internet for what's happening right now and what's interesting to me.
Okay, question for you is that, do you, and if so, how, take active steps to avoid this cognitive surrender? Do you consciously think about this, or is it like, oh, I'm just in a natural flow with AI and this is what's happening? Like, do you have a tip or this is how I do it, not to make sure that it's not just AI running my life?
That's a great question. I think sometimes I get lost in the sauce. The sauce is just so good. It's almost like eating chicken nuggets without ketchup, or like French
Wait,
fries.
blasphemy.
Yeah, impossible. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm lost in the sauce sometimes because it's
Okay.
like I'm trying to stay consistent and keep it going. That's probably some of my obsessive personality of doing things, which I think I've spoken to you about before. Like I decided one day this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it every day, and I just don't stop, no matter what. Oh, and with
Yeah, it
everything
just
else,
becomes like a streak you don't want to break anymore.
yeah. And with everything else in life, everything else to keep that streak going, sometimes absolutely, I'm surrendering. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I think like even on this and transparency about it, there's this trend going on YouTube right now. I think it's this funny guy. His name is John, and he's like a golfer. And like he came up with this thing where he's man enough to say it or not afraid to admit it or something like that. I didn't say it perfectly. I'm probably gonna get made fun of in the comments later on YouTube. But yeah, like
You
listen,
can cut out this segment. It's fine.
yeah, no, everything's saying it. I'm man enough to say it, not afraid to admit it. But basically, yeah, I'm definitely surrendering some of my cognitive load for sure,
Mm,
100%. Yeah,
yeah. I was actually thinking about this, and because when I was preparing this, I was like, what if we come down to discussing like what do you do to avoid surrender, like cognitive surrender? And like I realized that also I'm not always having this at the front of my mind when I'm interacting. But I think one good tip to think about is that you can, like we talked about, we can use AI in two ways, broadly speaking. Obviously, there are many subways. One of them is just do this thing for me, do the task for me, code this thing, make an image. And the other one is, hey, be my sounding board, be my second pair of eyes on this, or idea, the generator slash filter, right? And the way I'm now starting to think about this is that if it's something that matters to you, if it's your passion, or if it's a deliverable that you want to be known for and you want to own, then you should use AI in the second capacity, like as a sparring partner, but if it's a throwaway thing like that isn't the core of who you are and who you want to be, maybe that's the place where you can be like, you know what? I don't need to focus on this. It's fine that AI comes out, and good enough is fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's fine that it's just 80% there. In my own life, like Substack, for example, for me, writing is like, I come from a writing background, so I want to keep writing. So to this day, I don't use AI to draft things, because I want to be able to say that the joke, the phrasing, the angle came from me. It's my words on the page. But for me, in that capacity, I will use AI as a sounding board, as a beta editor or beta reader. But I'll happily use AI completely wholesale for a funny cartoon image to illustrate a concept, because to me, that's not the core deliverable, and it's not the core skill that I have. So it's like, it's fun for me to just have it as a filler. And vice versa, for somebody who might be saying that, for me, like for you, like the thinking and the philosophy and the legwork that goes before the writing is more important. That's your capacity. So for you, the writing part and the fact that ChatGPT can shape the words, you maybe have like a inverse relationship there.
Yeah.
And obviously, like a designer or a cartoonist would not use AI to do the cartoons like I'm doing, because that is their core deliverable, a core passion, right? So
Yeah.
I think it depends where you are and which mode
Yeah.
you will use with AI.
Absolutely. I remember, I think it was one of our first streams together. You talked about how you use it, and you said that sometimes you'll use it to critique or to like maybe the opposite of what I do this sometimes, but like you mentioned, you'll write out your article and then you'll throw it into your AI of choice, and you'll say, okay, what can I do better here in terms of maybe the layout, the format, editing, critique, and things like that. And I think in my case, I will a lot of the times to try and maneuver that agreeableness, which can be frustrating. Like I will push back for
Yeah,
sure, and it's not just like related to Substack. Like even for example, a little bit of a tangent, but we like tangents on this stream.
all about the tangents.
Yeah, maybe we've spoken about investing in the past. Typically, I'm very conservative, just like index funds. I don't want to deal with it. But recently, I was thinking to myself, being in this AI world and being in this bubble that we're in, I'm not economically a bubble, but uh, ideologically, with all the creators that we speak to.
Mhm.
And I realized like people, the majority of the world just don't realize what's going on right now. And like the creators that I speak to, whether it's you or Andrea Chiarelli or Chris from Toxic or Sam Illingworth, like everyone comes in with a different angle. And I realize even, and when I'm speaking about investing, and I'll touch on this. So like, I just recently realized like it would be irresponsible of me, financially irresponsible of me to not take a chance on what I think the future is going to look like. And I think like even in the base case scenario, the integration of AI into everything in the world is just it's inevitable. So I realized, okay, I want to build a portfolio of AI related companies, and I'm going to use AI to help me pick those companies. Now, where does where so how am I not surrendering cognitively? I'm allowing it to give me these companies, but now I'm using my background to know how to value a company, to look at their balance sheet, and then to push back on ChatGPT and say, hey, like, why would you choose this company? What does this have to do with anything? And then
Mhm.
also looking at valuations and then saying, now sparring with it and saying, how can I model my investing going forward to basically say, okay, I think that valuations are high for some of these companies. I'm going to just dip in slowly. If things drop down, I will become a little bit more aggressive, but I'm also not going to let my personal ideologies prevent me from investing in certain companies based
Mhm.
on if I don't like what they're doing in the world. Because I realize at the end of the day, on a 10-year span, this portfolio could outperform greatly compared to the market because that's the direction I believe that we're heading in. And I think a lot of it is inevitable, even in the base case. So, yeah.
I think that resonates. I think Ethan Mollick already in, I want to say 2023, as early as then, he said that, listen, if all AI progress like when by progress these models getting smarter, if it all stopped now, like just 1 year after ChatGPT first came out, he was writing it then and said, even if we just stop all of that, we have like potentially decades of integration and absorbing this technology and having a spillover effect from it onto society. And obviously, since then, things have progressed massively, well, to reasoning models and things like agents like Claude Code and Codex and so on. So, yeah, I think it's not in a far fetched scenario that we're undervaluing right now the impact of it, and that an investment of that sort actually makes a lot of sense in the longer run.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's a little bit off topic. We're not like an investing
No,
stream.
it's an investing course. Sign up for my 23-day workshop on investing in AI companies.
Yeah. Not a financial advisor. So this is not financial advice. There's a disclosure, so nobody can sue me. But yeah, basically, I took like a nice number of companies and like I put the majority of it in companies that I know will succeed that are already monsters, like Google, Nvidia, and kept those like kind of big boys. But then also like on the other side of it, I did a little bit on the more risky side at a smaller amount, which is like I do believe that there's kind of levels to it, right? There's Google, which is a no brainer, and then there's companies that are involved in data centers, which is also a no-brainer, but some of these companies could probably be interchangeable. Like even not just the hardware itself that runs AI, but for example, like the air conditioners that cool data centers. Like I don't know if you've seen those videos recently of these huge data centers popping up. They make so much noise. And the reason for that noise is because there's literally fans just on constantly running,
Cool.
keeping them cool. And then like on the next level of risk would be like quantum computing, right? Because like at a certain point, the energy discussion is just unsustainable. So quantum computing and then maybe some nuclear and things like that. So I think just to get back on topic here, like that's in a way, how do I avoid cognitive surrender and something like that? And this is the danger, I think, in the real life danger, like financial danger. A lot of people can just go into a chatbot and say, give me a good investment and they'll just go put their money in it. ChatGPT told me that this company is could blow up, right? Not physically, could literally like 100x. But then if you like push back on it and tell it why you think it won't, it will now agree with you and tell you why you're probably right.
Yeah, the problem with that is, of course, like how much of it is just like a semantic response to the way you phrase yourself and the way you push back, and how much of it is actually grounded in fact. And that's, I think, the danger with LLMs in general, because they're mimic factories in a sense, right? The personality comes from the fact that we encoded it. Their responses come from the fact that if you reinforce what it's saying, it's going to say more of that. If you push back on it, it'll be say like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I made a mistake. I actually shouldn't invest in this at all. I'm an idiot." But like,
Yeah.
at what point do you then stop trusting it because you see that it changes based, like it shape shifts depending on what you give it? It's about also having a robust set of like underlying assumptions and understandings yourself prior to bringing it to AI. I think that actually probably is also at the root of how do you avoid cognitive surrender. I would say do your own legwork first, form an opinion, and try to make it an educated opinion, and then ask AI to poke holes in it, maybe expand on it, because then you're coming from a baseline that is harder to move based on the whim of a token completion machine, right? But I
Yeah.
see there are a lot of comments. I don't know if you wanted to look through them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll go through some chats and then we'll wrap it up. So see, we'll go all the way up. And Martin White says, I used to get paid to train AI. And when ChatGPT gives me two choices, I feel like I should be paid for that choice. That'd be nice. That would be nice. I get that a lot.
It's like those click to take a survey sites that used to exist like some years ago.
Yeah.
This is like click to rate AI answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all
It says
for it.
that time I spend random scrolling is useful. It allows my mind to reset. I don't know about that, man.
I think it's
Maybe that's
fair.
the
I think
person.
it's escapism. Some read a book, some just like you got to offload as well sometimes. You can't be in productive mode all the time.
Yeah, I feel dead inside when I do that. I don't feel good about
I think
myself.
it's okay to allow ourselves to also do some silly stuff sometimes. I
True.
don't know.
It's true. That's true. And this is less friction to get to your endpoint. It's a great quote. Appreciate it. And then we mentioned the JC thing about the job hunters, but I think was a
Mm.
funny thing. Let's see. Yeah. JC says, preach AI can be just the ultimate yes man. You need people with skin in the game. For sure.
Yeah, and that's
For
back
sure.
to there being jobs and there being like your taste is it could
Yeah.
be important in the job, right?
Yeah. I feel like this is spoken about a lot and we know about this, but I think most of the world really doesn't know how much of a yes man, how agreeable chatbots are. It's crazy. I think a lot more people should be aware of that.
I'm gonna use this opportunity now that you mentioned it to
Mhm.
post this. I wrote about this not so long ago, like how to reduce the sycophancy of AI models, because maybe some people will find it useful. It's basically a bunch of tips of how you can prevent AI from just being a yes man when talking to you, and that's one
Yeah,
way to also potentially avoid some cognitive surrender.
yeah. Let's see. I appreciate all the kind words from JC there. I'm not gonna hype myself up too much. I don't really think I'm
Oh, please
that
do.
special. Okay. He says that I'm underbelly in my intelligence and experience. I don't know what he means by underbelly.
I think he meant underselling, but apparently Substack blocked it
Oh,
or
yeah,
something.
understood. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Oh, yeah, there he says apparently the word undersells isn't allowed as a word. Let's see. Martin says, I feel that for me, using AI is a symbiotic relationship, a collaboration. Yeah. I think, like Daniel mentioned, that's probably one of the best ways to avoid this cognitive surrender. I think, like, critique, avoiding that agreeableness, which Daniel just mentioned, and then also, yeah, like collaboration
I mean,
versus
see it
just
as another colleague you're just chatting to and be like, hey, dude, is this okay? Does this make sense? Why doesn't it make sense? Like just the sounding board
yeah,
instead of being locked in your own head.
yeah. Joel Salinas, thank you for joining us. If it wasn't for Joel Salinas, I wouldn't be doing this right now. So I don't know if he's still here, but Joel, I just want to say thank you to you personally because I think maybe my first or second live stream was either with you and with Michael and Claudia. So, you guys just let me jump into the water here and start doing these live streams. So I really appreciate you guys from Kazora, Cozora. That's where I met Daniel, or this way, Daniel.
I'm somewhere. I'm either above or below or to the side.
Yeah, yeah. And Joel says index funds will take some time to catch up to that. I agree. I
Mhm.
still think, again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I can say what I've done for a while is I just do index funds. I don't want to have to think about it. I have enough things to think about. But then I realized, okay, I see where this is going in the future. So maybe take a little risk. CMK Panda, do you have any practical advice for those of us that are job seekers whose careers have been ended after years of employment, even after we use AI as requested by our former employers? Are there specific skills we should be working on? It's a good question.
Yeah. To me, like this soft skill that I've always said is going to remain helpful no matter what. It's just like hands on, try things and curiosity. Like, I don't find a problem that you want to solve or a task you want to accomplish and try using these tools or anything for it and just experiment. Like, just this passion for experimentation, I think, will get you further than like just sitting down and studying a specific framework that somebody else came up with and trying to apply it. So that's my like ground advice for this for sure.
Yeah. I think on my end, I'll just make a quick example that I heard. Like I'll make it brief. Hey, I spoke to somebody who works at Adobe a couple months ago, and he just said, "Yeah, we just got Claude." I'm like, "You just got Claude?" And we're learning how to use it now. I think the what you're seeing now with a lot of the workforce is they're just now being introduced to AI. So I think if you can do more work on your end outside of your job, you can separate yourself. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's definitely a reality. I think a lot of these companies too are firing people because they overhired and using AI as an excuse for that firing. That's my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
I think that they're also flailing because I don't think AI is a thing you can implement top down. That's my personal opinion. I don't think as a company can come in and said, hey, we gave you Claude, now use it. The outcome of doing that will be much less impressive than a person discovering this by applying it to a real problem in a kind of natural, organic way. And that's the thing you can train on your own, as you just mentioned. You're like, just do this for yourself more than for anyone else because somebody comes and imposes it on you. But that's easier said than done when you're in an unfortunate position where your boss maybe read something one morning and said, "Hey, now we're gonna do this, and if you don't, then goodbye." That's a
Yeah.
crappy situation to be in.
Yeah, it's tough.
Um, yeah.
Let's see. A couple more here and we'll wrap up. Tina says, the one thing I did do in my settings, train my AI to challenge me, push me, and don't agree with everything I say. So far, I think that's working because my AI acts like my teenage daughter.
That's great.
That's good. That's like the opposite of
That's the
agreeable.
literal persona you can type in. Acting like my teenage daughter with
Yeah.
17 years of experience. That was
Never
the
agree with me. I'm not right about anything.
no, that's perfect. And I think like that, Tina, that also touches upon some of the things I covered in that article. That's just like baking in some of this critical persona into your interaction will help.
Yeah. Let's see. Sakitha says, what is the flow a developer needs to follow to avoid from cognitive surrender? Altman saying code won't writing by human future. There needs to be a common ground. Everyone can agree. Does it make sense? Yeah. What do you think, Daniel?
I already answered that a little bit. Like in this like doomsday scenario where AI is just so perfect that it can just write all code and no human coder can possibly compete with the speed and accuracy. Let's imagine that happens. It hasn't happened yet, but let's imagine that happens. I would say there is still value in understanding what is this code even doing? Why? How should the end product look? What are we trying to serve? What are the pain points? And that's something AI will not really be able to do in from its abstract black box. That's still something a human needs to do. A human who looks another human in the eye and understands, oh, you're saying these things, but I can see there is something between the lines there that's not being served. AI is too literal. So I think there is still going to be a lot of that subtle interaction that we as humans and this holistic understanding and knowledge that is not going to go away. So maybe,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe you shouldn't instead of, unless it's a passion and you really love writing code, just like I really like writing. I realize that AI can probably write better prose than I can at this point if I prompt it the right way or if I find the right tool. I'm not going to abandon writing because I genuinely like, I like putting my words on paper. I like putting my humor on paper. And that I don't want AI to mimic that even. I want it to be me. And maybe if that's what code is for you, then learn code and continue coding. Like it might not have sellable potential, but it's still something that brings you joy and gives you a better level of understanding. Do that. Yeah. So there's the work answer, learn those like higher level skills, but there's also the passion answer. That's like AI might write better code, but so what? Write your own, code your own tools, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
I
I'm
think
a
that's
bit
perfectly
rambling, but I
stated.
think
No,
that's the gist of it.
I think that's perfectly stated. That's a perfect way to wrap this up. We'll do one more chat, even though I do have to go to work and go about my
Mhm.
day. There's one more quick one here. Anna says, hi, can you share your thoughts? What is happening with all the acquisitions in tech space related to AI? What is being consolidated? Yeah, before we touch on that, I just want to say before we wrap up too, that's the YouTube channel. I forgot to put that in. Go subscribe on YouTube. You can either copy and paste that or go to YouTube, type in exploring ChatGPT live, and the streams will be there, as well as streams with other creators. So yeah, basically Anna's asking what is happening with all the acquisitions in tech space related to AI. I think, in my opinion, it's not just acquisitions, but it's adoption. And a lot of these companies are in a race to even make their own AI rather than acquiring other AI companies because they feel they're going to be left out in the future. And also, there's a risk to relying on other companies to provide you with AI resources.
I don't know the exact latest acquisitions, but I think the long-term trajectory most likely will be that we'll end up with fewer companies over time because there will be some startups that are thin wrappers over current products that will not have a reason to exist anymore. And bigger companies will absorb some of those features into their own products. That's what we're seeing with things like Claude Code and Codex. And at some point, we will probably consolidate in the industry somehow. But that's when it will happen and what it means overall. This is probably too early to say right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's got the money? Who's going to run out of money first?
yeah.
Basically. We'll wrap it up here. First of all, thank you, Daniel, as always. I really appreciate you joining me in these weekly streams. We do these on Wednesdays at 7:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Time, whatever time we're in now. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Really appreciate it. And yeah, have a great rest of your day, guys. Subscribe to
And
Daniel Nest on Substack.
thanks, Lior, and thanks for having me. Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for joining.
Bye now.